Those who would trade liberty for security deserve neither liberty nor security. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. And there's a lot of that going on these days. American citizens voluntarily ceding liberties for some sort of perceived feeling of security. It needs to stop, whether we're talking about wokeness or cancel culture or ESG standards in businesses, environmental, social governance goals, or CRT, critical race theory. We're giving up too much of our free speech. How about the notion of dangerous speech or violent speech or hate speech? Where is that in the First Amendment? I'd like to know. Before I get into all that, I want to quickly mention that if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for your faith-based podcasts. And God knows we all need a little bit more faith in today's perilous times. So go to edify.app online, check out Bold and Blunt, subscribe to Bold and Blunt, and check out the other faith-based podcasts there. You can also get Bold and Blunt anywhere you get your podcasts, but I want to quickly note WashingtonTimes.com is the number one place to go for your news and for your Bold and Blunt podcast. Go there, find the newsletter section, click on it, find my name, subscribe to my 3 times a week newsletter. It comes out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays right to your email box in time for the lunch hour. And in it is contained all my commentaries that I write all day long, all week long at the Washington Times, along with my twice weekly Bold and Blunt podcasts. You don't want to miss it. Sign up now. Let me read you this report from Pew Research Center. It came out August 18th, 2021. It's worth a read, so go online and check it out, Pew Research. The title of this excellent report is this: More Americans now say government should take steps to restrict false information online than in 2018. So within a 3-year time period between 2018 and 2021, the number or percentage of Americans who think government's role is to determine false information online, and then after making that determination, take steps to restrict that so-called, so-deemed false information. The percentage has risen in just 3 years. And guess what drove that? Yes, the left's favorite go-to in recent history for seizing individual liberties, drumroll please, COVID-19. Amid rising concerns over misinformation online, the writers of this Pew survey write, including surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, especially vaccines, Americans are now a bit more open to the idea of the U.S. government taking steps to restrict false information online, and a majority of the public continues to favor technology companies taking such action, according to a new Pew Research Center survey. If you agree with this, I want to question your patriotism. I want to question your Americanism. How can you claim to be a patriotic American citizen, lover of liberties, beacon of freedom to the entire world, representative of all that's great about humanity in terms of achieving freedom, and believe the government needs to determine what constitutes truthful information or not, and then actually take steps to remove all information that's deemed untruthful? Please, it's disgusting and despicable if you happen to agree that the government of the United States has any right, never mind any role, in censoring, because this is what censoring truly is. When the government restricts speech, or when the government rates speech, or determines what speech is tolerable versus intolerable. That's called censorship. And if you think the government has any role in determining that, any right in determining that, I question whether you are a true American or not. But apparently, I'm speaking right now to 48% of U.S. adults because, as this Pew survey showed back in August 2021, and I'm reading now from the findings, roughly half of U.S. adults, 48%, now say the government should take steps to restrict false information, even if it means losing some freedom to access and publish content. This was a survey of 11,178 adults. And guess what? That 48% is up from 39% in 2018. Disgusting, despicable, and let me use a word from Hillary Clinton, deplorable. These are the true deplorables in America, the ones who would give up voluntarily the ability to speak freely and access free information based, this is the key here, based on government determination. It's different when a private enterprise determines what speech is tolerable versus intolerable for that particular organization. I'm not in favor of government determining what speech is deemed okay versus not okay. That's censorship. That goes right against the First Amendment, at least the spirit of the First Amendment. I'm also not in favor of private companies restricting free speech. That being said, private companies in America, in a free capitalistic system like America, do have the legal right to restrict some speech. And this gets into that whole argument whether big tech, social media, has become sort of the government's go-to for restricting free speech running around the Constitution. I think they have. I now think they have. For a very long time, I stood in the camp of standing up for the rights of Facebook and Twitter and social media and so forth, having the legal right to restrict speech. But they have become a quasi-government entity because they've been shown to be partnering with sources within the government to determine what speech is okay versus not okay. And that's when they cross the line. But 48% of U.S. adults thinking it's okay for the government to determine speech and censor speech is absolutely despicable. And it has really ratcheted up under the coronavirus. For my latest book, Lockdown, The Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom, I have a chapter on how government, not just in America, but around the world, used the coronavirus, used the information that the government bureaucrats were putting out about the coronavirus, and then especially used the information the government wanted put out about these so-called vaccines, which aren't really vaccines, let's call them what they are. They're shots, chemical shots. They used all those situations and scenarios to justify stifling free speech, critical thinking, alternative ideas, free thought. Because they said it was dangerous. It was killing people. It was killing people if the government was telling you to get the shot, then the booster, then the booster, then the booster, then the next booster. And someone out there, no matter how medically specialized this person was out there, but someone out there was saying, whoa, wait a minute, these shots may be a little bit dangerous. The mRNA, messenger RNA shots are experimental for humans. We need to go slow on the rollout of this mass vaccination of humanity. And the government came in and said, whoa, wait a minute. We can't have someone giving out a countering viewpoint of the government narrative. This person has been deemed by the government dangerous. So the government used the coronavirus as a way, as a means of stifling free thought and stifling free speech, because they deemed people with countering viewpoints as dangers of society, as possibly leading to the death of members of society, as laying the groundwork for people to die, people to die, people to die. And so, of course, you can't have people die. You can't have people dying. And so it gave government the cause they needed, the rally cry they needed to say, wait a minute, we have to censor speech because it's for the good of the people. It's for the good of society. It's for the good of the individual, for the collective. And people in America, I gotta say it, I am ashamed to say, 48% of adults, people in America said, yay, government, go government, take my free speech. And now we're at a situation where data is rapidly showing that, guess what? Some of these shots aren't that safe after all. But we've become accustomed now to stifling down all these countering viewpoints. And so it's very difficult to get the actual truthful data out there. Maybe it's data that is coming from the government. Maybe it's data that's coming from other sources. But it's really hard now to sift through and determine what is actually truthful or not. And so the coronavirus gave the government the in it needed in America to shut down free speech, to censor free speech. We saw that as a big example under COVID-19 around the world and in America. Social media platforms going nuts, booting everybody who questioned the government narrative about coronavirus, about the vaccines, about the shots. And now that trend is just continuing. The trend is just continuing in America, where too many Americans are voluntarily giving up their speech and their individual liberties because they think it's the safe, patriotic, proper thing to do. And that's why we're having an explosion in this nation of woke culture. That's why we're having an explosion in this nation of the younger generations thinking that their feelings come before individual liberties and the Constitution, and God forbid we say this, God-given rights. The foundation of American exceptionalism, by the way. But that's why we're seeing this. Because for years now, the left has been trying to strip individual liberties from individuals in America, and the coronavirus came along and just boom. It's the gift to the left that keeps on giving. Well, guess what? We've got ourselves in a bind right now. What is the current state of free speech in the United States? Let me read this really quickly. It's from a group called mastersincommunications.org, some sort of nonprofit. Free speech may be something we take for granted in the United States, but do we actually have the freedoms that we think we do? Recently, free speech has come under scrutiny. Many people are asking whether free speech is harmful to others. Oh, when you hurt my feelings. That was me editorializing for a second. Now back to the speech. And if there are times when speech should be censored in order to protect individuals, groups of people, or the United States government, yes, by all means, let's protect the government. Because we can't have individual citizens calling out our government servants as scandalous or corrupt or feckless or weak or mentally incompetent. Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. In the United States, free speech refers to the First Amendment rights in the Constitution. But is all speech okay in the United States? Free speech was limited in 1919. I'm just going to read this really quickly and then get into my guest. After a decision was reached about the Supreme Court case, Schenck versus United States. The court determined that free speech would not be permitted when it presented a clear and present danger to society. And the government bureaucrats spun the coronavirus into clear and present danger. But guess what? Let me just read this real quickly. The case in question was about two individuals by the names of Charles Schneck and Elizabeth Baer. Schneck and Baer were socialists, and they were distributing leaflets urging the public to disobey the United States draft. Socialists. Socialists in America. They don't belong. They don't belong in America. And yes, I hope Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders are listening to me right now. Because when you get socialists in America mucking up the political system, messing with the culture, you get all kinds of anti-American results. And this is where we're living right now in America. And nobody knows that better, perhaps, than my great guest today. You know him from Fox News. You know him from New York City, WABC radio hosting duties. You know him even from movies. His name is Sid Rosenberg. And now today on Bold and Blunt, you will know him from his new book, Citizens United. That's SID-IZENS. Get the play there. Citizens United, salacious spiels, stories, suggestions, and solutions to withstand a woke world. And boy, do we need solutions. Sid, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Well, you're welcome. I'm a fan of your show. I read your stuff in the Washington Times all the time.
Oh.
I really liked your last column, Joe Biden sees dead people. I thought that was really funny. I mean, it's not really funny. It's actually very scary that he's the leader of the free world, but you're very creative and very, very talented, so thank you for having me on your show today. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that. I'm humbled. I appreciate it. And let's talk about your new book, because it sounds tremendous. Citizens United, salacious spiels, stories, suggestions, and solutions to withstand a woke world. That is a mouthful, but I was scrolling through your chapter summaries, scrolling through your table of contents, and what caught my eye immediately was chapter 5, the GOAT. Because as a former citizen of Massachusetts, and knowing that you're in New York, I thought when I went to that chapter, oh, let's see what you're going to put out there. And you, surprising to me, named Tom Brady. Why?
Well, he's just the best ever. I mean, yes, I'm a New Yorker, and I worked in sports for many, many years, and I had the fortunate opportunity, Cheryl, to work the pre- and post-game show for the New York Giants during the Eli Manning era, when we, in fact, beat Tom Brady and the Patriots 2-2 in the Super Bowl. Eli got the best of Tom, but look, let's be honest. Tom Brady's got 7 Super Bowls. He's been to the big game 10 times. Even now, at the age of 45, still playing pretty good football for the Buccaneers. I know they're 2-2 now, and they lost to Kansas City, but he had a big game Sunday night, Tom Brady, 285 yards and 3 more touchdowns. So, look, I'm a football historian to a certain extent. I'm very, very close friends with Lawrence Taylor, who was the best defensive player ever. Some make the argument he's the best player ever. I've seen guys, obviously Jim Brown had a great career, but I've seen guys like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and all these, Dan Marino, great players, but nobody like Brady. Peyton Manning had some serious weapons, Cheryl, in Indianapolis, and he still couldn't beat Tom Brady. Brady had 1 year of Randy Moss and Wes Welker. That was it. Otherwise, he won Super Bowls with guys you couldn't pick out of a lineup. So to me, based on the lack of talent around him, great coach, obviously Bill Belichick, lack of talent around him, and the amount of times this guy won, I don't know how you argue, Tom Brady is the greatest football player of all time.
Well, that just shows your common sense and intellect, in my view. Now, my 2 sons and I argue constantly. They think Peyton Manning is better than Tom Brady.
No, listen, I mean, look, Tom had better defenses. There's no question about it. And Tom had Bill Belichick, who, was a great coach when Tom was there. By the way, the Patriots are 1-3 this year without Brady and haven't won Super Bowl since he left. So who was really better for the team? Was it Bill or was it Tom? But Peyton Manning had an array of huge weapons, guys like Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Edgerrin James. I mean, he had guys on offense that were Hall of Famers. Again, Tom Brady had that for 1 year and still got the better of Peyton and won many, many more Super Bowls. Peyton won 2, Brady's won 7. So to To me, as great as Peyton was, he may be top 5, maybe top 7 all time. To me, you talk about the 3 greatest, it's Brady, Montana, Unitas, maybe not in that order, but Tom Brady, clearly the best quarterback of all time.
Oh, I can't wait to play this podcast for my 2 sons. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about your book, because I'm curious, do you see any backlash about all this wokeness, or do you see it just growing louder?
It's funny you asked that question. The answer is not going to make you happy. It's both, because it's both. There is a growing craziness in America today. Doesn't seem to be slowing down. Whether it's men participating against females in sports because they woke up one morning and decided, I can't beat boys anymore, let me try the girls. That's really the truth behind the whole thing. But at the same time, I do believe that folks have had enough. So I feel like it's growing. I'm not exactly sure how many Democrats, for example, are tired of it and how many are willing to make the switch. Independents, good question. I think they probably had enough. And I think that's why you're going to see a red wave, Cheryl, come November. I think that independents will lean right. Republicans will stay there like me. And you'll get a couple of Democrats that'll flip too. And part of that is the woke culture. I mean, obviously inflation and taxes and crime and all that is all part of it as well. But I think America is starting to figure it out. I don't think America, for the most part, is very happy about it. And I think the midterms in 2022 will prove that. So the answer is a combination of both, but more people on our team, which is the right team.
So how concerned are you when you look back over the last couple of years of the coronavirus clampdowns and all the talk about so-called dangerous rhetoric and the need to censor dangerous rhetoric that countered the government narrative about, say, the shots, the vaccines, or the face masks, and the booting of these voices from social media? How concerned are you that that is not going to go away, that has just become more ingrained in America's culture?
Well, look, I live in New York City, and I don't know about most people listening to this podcast. I hope they listen all over the world because it's that good, but I can tell you there's still a healthy amount of New Yorkers that walk the streets every single day wearing masks. Even in August, it was 82 degrees, and walking around on a bright, sunny day wearing masks.
Yes.
I just don't get it.
Yep.
So it has been ingrained into the culture. Now, we some of these folks have become those people. They'll just wear it forever. They would tell you it's all about the science. There is no science that dictates you should wear a mask. In fact, as we progressed in the COVID era, we found out that the masks don't even work. So there is a certain amount of that craziness, that paranoia. That's the real word here, paranoia. That's been ingrained in our citizens. I don't think that the government can continue to use COVID as an excuse much longer. I really don't. It's interesting now. You got the story about this heroic guy down in Florida who helped out people who were trapped in Hurricane Ian, and how Joe Biden went out of his way to call the guy, congratulate the guy, and by the way, the guy's about to get fired because he hasn't gotten his vaccine. So I think eventually the mandates will go away. I think people are starting to pay less and less attention to all of that. I don't think that we're going to deal with this nonsense for the rest of our lives, whether we win or lose in November. But there will be some that will allow this to have a lingering effect and continue to live that lifestyle, which consists of wearing masks and social distancing and all the nonsense that really went away a very, very long time ago. I think the answer is, in big numbers, it will all disappear.
In your research for your excellent Citizens United, your new book, what did you trace as the roots of wokeness?
Well, the media. I mean, you got to start right there.
Yep.
Right? That's where it all starts. I mean, they're pushing all this agenda, and also sports. I do a lot of talking in the book. I'm a huge sports guy. Again, I was weird on WFAN in New York. It does not get bigger than that. Became a legitimate star there between 2000 and 2005 until my personal life derailed that. And now I've come back to New York and gone into politics instead. But I still do a healthy amount of sports on my news talk political show every morning. And people like LeBron James and these other folks aren't helping the situation, I can tell you that. But it is media, it is the sports world, it is all the places we used to go, Cheryl, for recreation, all the places we used to go to escape the everyday madness. now they've become more maddening than anybody else. So that's where I would start right there. All of our issues, I think, are with the media, whether it's woke, whether it's political bias and flat-out lies, exaggeration. The media really has gone a long way in really treating this country badly. Dishonesty, lies, woke, all of it. So start with the media. Sports, you have to take sports into account. I think the everyday person, again, I don't think is all caught up in it. For example, I live in New York. We're very diverse here, obviously. But the truth is that, 2% of the population is gay? That's about it. You would think when you watch television and read certain things that 98% were gay and 2% were straight. It's the other way around. I don't think people are caught up in it every day. Maybe in New York, yes, L.A., Chicago, Philadelphia. Most of America is not caught up in the woke culture. But the media and sports, they push it on you every day, and it's nauseating.
Yeah, the media in particular, I have found, because I've been in the media over 20 years, and so I've seen it change and morph, as you have, I'm sure, as well. And there seems to be a decided evilness that has taken root in much of the mainstream media. And honestly, I don't know the solution for that. Do you?
I don't, because it's not as if Donald Trump wins again in 2024, he can change that. He'll be the first to admit it. It's not as if there's a red wave in 2022 and we won the midterms. That's going to change. These are big business people that are making these types of decisions, and networks. And then, of course, you've got all your major sponsors, right? We saw the Major League Baseball game pull out of Atlanta, Georgia,
right,
go to a place in Denver, Colorado, which is all white. So it's not like politics is going to change that. So I don't have a solution right now because it's not much of mainstream media, Cheryl. It's all of it. You've got Newsmax, and they are pretty much on the right side. Even Fox News. I mean, I've been on Fox News 10 times the last 2 weeks. I love those guys over there. But, after you get through the nighttime programming, which is very solid with Tucker, Sean, and Laura, at any point during the day, you'll see Harold Ford Jr., or you'll see Donna Brazile, or you'll see, in the past, Eric Swalwell. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So there's nowhere to go. CBS, NBC, ABC, they're brutal. And certainly, I won't even bother talking about CNN and MSNBC. So it's all of mainstream media, all of it. That's become a huge issue. And political change won't necessarily change that. So the answer to your question is there may be no way to save it. No way to save it unless people rebel and just stop watching. And I'm not sure that's ever going to be the case.
And at least we still have the First Amendment, which guarantees the right to start your own media enterprise if you so choose. So maybe that's where some of the answer lies, having more voices.
Maybe. I mean, you got to be careful with that because, unfortunately, the everyday person starts to think, those people are on the fringe. And they may not be. They may be very rational, everyday people who are like-minded like us and just don't want to see this horrible bias every day. But when people pop up with new stuff, people automatically kind of red flag and like, oh my God, what kind of crazy person is that person? And it's not fair, but unfortunately that does seem to be the case a lot of the time.
Chapter 7 of your new Citizens United is entitled The Donald. Talk about that one.
Well, that's my guy Trump. And it's funny I say my guy Trump because I came to New York in 2016. I came back. I was gone for 11 years. I did some fill-in shows on sports radio stations here, but after my momentous 5-year stay between 2000 and 2005, I was basically gone for 11 years. And then I got the call from WABC, legendary political station. We want you to replace Geraldo, you and Bernie McGurk, who worked for Imus for many, many years, as our new midday show. And I came back, and the last year, the first year I should say I was here, was the year leading up to the election between Trump and Clinton. And I was not a Donald Trump fan. I've known Donald Trump, Cheryl, for 25 years. Been on my sports shows many times. In the old days, we used to go to Tyson fights together in Las Vegas. Not travel together, but I'd see him there. He'd make appearances on my shows all the time. And then he had this campaign for president. And I didn't like Barack Obama. And I knew that Hillary Clinton would just be an extension of Barack Obama. But I was going to take my chances with her. Because I'm watching Donald Trump, and I see a guy that he's going to build a wall. He wears some stupid red hat, and he's going to nickname all of his opponents, Low Energy Cheryl, Big Hand Sydney, and I'm going, this TV show. You can't run this country. So I voted against him. But here's the difference. People that voted for Donald Trump day one, or loved him from the time he came down the escalator, they never wavered. And people who hated Donald Trump when he came down the escalator, they never wavered. Me, I didn't like Donald Trump. I thought his campaign was sophomoric, if not stupid. And I didn't even like Hillary. I voted against him. And it took me about 4 months to realize, outside of Ronald Reagan, because Reagan did have 2 terms, Donald Trump was the best president of my lifetime. And now you're going to find very few people more enthusiastic about a Donald Trump return. I mean, I love Ron DeSantis. I love him. And I lived in Florida for 16 years. I don't want to see DeSantis in 2024. I want to see DeSantis in 2028. I want Donald Trump back in 2024 because Donald Trump proved to me once already he can do it. It's like the young football player who's got potential. You know what potential means? You haven't done it yet. That's Ron DeSantis as president. Give me back Donald Trump, because I know this. For 3.5 years until COVID hit, that guy was a kick-ass president.
I agree with you, and I agree with the need for America to have Donald Trump again before we move on to Ron DeSantis. One of the greatest things I think Donald Trump did was root out the globalist forces that had seeped in quietly into America's culture and politics. He did a ton of good stuff, but I think, honestly, that's the best long-term benefit he brought to America. What's your top 1, 2, 3 things that Trump did for America?
Well, I agree with that too, Cheryl. Making America first was a very, very big deal for me. Look, I'm a Jewish kid, can't hide it. Sid Rosenberg. I play Italians in movies all the time. In fact, I've got 3 TV shows and movies coming out next fall. I play an Italian monster in all 3 of them, and I look kind of like a tough guy, but I'm Jewish. And in my lifetime, I've never seen a president do more for the state of Israel, which is hugely important, as you know, for this country, than Donald Trump. He was the only one of 6 presidents who promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Donald Trump was the only one to do it. By the way, he did it in cheap fashion and built a beautiful embassy in Jerusalem, recognized Golden Heights as part of Israel, stopped sending pallets of cash like Obama did time and time again to the Palestinians, who in turn gave that money to Hamas, a terrorist organization. So the way he treated Israel, what he did for Israel, to me, right off the bat, makes him the best president of all time. And the media. I mean, Donald Trump did a tremendous job exposing the media since I've been a little kid. I mean, I used to watch Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw and Dan Rather. I knew they were lefties, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't in your face. Rather got worse as he got older. Now, here comes Donald Trump, and he says, look at this guy, Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. Look at this guy. And he starts pointing out all of these folks on MSNBC, on CNN. By the way, folks that loved him. You know, don't forget, Joe and Mika loved Donald Trump. They loved him. He was on their show, and they were talking about him. And then, of course, they all went sideways when he won. But I think those 2 things for me, above and beyond what you talked about, which is very important, making America first, what he did with Israel and the way he exposed the media, those 3 things, to me, make Donald Trump as good as it gets.
Our time is about out, but I just wanted to finish with this one question, because you are in New York and you cover politics and culture, so you know New York. And I've been hearing that New York is actually moving a little bit more conservative lately, and Republicans actually have a chance in the midterms in the coming elections. What do you find?
I think that's true, but the big test, Cheryl, is going to be for the governor race. I mean, they can get some seats, you know, the House and Senate and, you know, assembly races and council races, those types of things. But the big one is governor. Kathy Hochul replaced a disgraced Andrew Cuomo when he had to step down. She is the governor that's all about, doesn't want to reform bail, cashless bail. She's perfectly okay with criminals walking the streets. Lee Zeldin is our only hope. Lee Zeldin, congressman out of Shirley, Long Island, here in New York. He is a Republican. Again, the numbers don't bode well in New York, where it's 2-1, maybe even more, Democrat to Republican. But in the latest polls, including a Siena poll just yesterday, Lee Zeldin gaining 16 points the last couple of months on Kathy Hochul. So all signs point to the Republicans doing very well in local races, but the big one is governor. And it seems like Lee Zeldin has a very realistic chance. We have not had a governor here, Republican, since George Pataki in the days of 9/11 alongside Rudy Giuliani. So we are looking at a real possibility show where Lee Zeldin could beat Kathy Hochul. If he does that, that bodes well for New York and, quite frankly, the country, and then again in 2024 for Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if the numbers are showing his gain now, the truth is it's probably even bigger because the polls always lean for the Democrat candidate. So that's great news. Sid, you're a delight, and I'm so happy to read through your new book, Citizens United, Salacious Spiels, Stories, Suggestions, and Solutions to Withstand a Woke World. I understand it's available Post Hill Press, anywhere books are offered, yes?
Anywhere books are offered, and of course, go to Amazon, because the more books that sell at Amazon, the better chance it has to be a bestseller. So Amazon works. Look into your local Barnes and Noble. You'll be able to get it there. But I really appreciate this opportunity, Cheryl. I really do. I read your stuff. I think you're great. And to be on your show today is a big deal for me. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Sid. God bless. And I'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Thank you, Cheryl. Best to you, too. And God bless you, and God bless America.
God bless America indeed. Sid Rosenberg, what an interesting guy. The book, once again, Citizens United, Salacious Spiels, Stories, Suggestions, and Solutions to Withstand a Woke World. What a great title. Check it out. Pick it up, Amazon.com. And also, while you're at Amazon shopping for Sid Rosenberg's new book, check out my latest title, Lock Down, the Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom. It's an eye-opener of how the left is jumping straight from the coronavirus flames into the climate change fires to continue lockdowns and seizures of individual liberties around the world, and more importantly, in America. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you that if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for faith-based podcasts at washingtontimes.com, or wherever podcasts are offered. Appreciate your support. Tune in next time, and in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.